Reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded during a technical test on April 26, 1986. Following the accident in the then Soviet Union, more than 400 times more radiation was emitted than that released. It remains the largest nuclear accident in history. More than 350,000 people were evacuated from the area. They never returned. The immediate impact on the environment was also important. One of the areas with more radiation was the pine forest near the plant, now known as the Red Forest. Due to this area receiving the highest levels of radiation, the pine trees died almost instantly and the leaves on the trees turned red. Few animals survived the highest radiation levels. Due to the initial impact after the accident, people thought the area would become a desert permanently, due to the amount of time needed for the radioactive compounds to decompose and disappear from the environment. Which brings in the question, was the Chernobyl disaster beneficial for the Ukrainian environment? Thesis statement. Chernobyl was beneficial for the Ukrainian environment because by getting rid of humans, it gave animals a chance to repopulate, plants a chance to regrow over the newly unpopulated land, and birds were able to create a new ecosystem. When you think of the Chernobyl disaster, you may associate it with the picture above. But today, 33 years after the accident, the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which covers part of Ukraine and Belarus, is now home to brown bears, bison, wolves, lynx, horses, and more than 200 bird species. That's a lot of birds. In March of 2019, around 30 researchers from the United Kingdom met in Portsmouth, England to present studies. These studies were on large mammals, nesting birds, amphibians, fish, bumblebees, earthworms, bacteria, and leaf litter decomposition, and the 200 different species of birds which have created their own ecosystem within the exclusion zone. These studies showed that the area has great biodiversity. All the studied groups maintain stable and viable populations inside the exclusion zone. An example of diversity in the area is the TREE project, Transfer Exposure Effects. This was led by Nick Bursford. As part of the project, motion detection cameras were placed for several years in different areas of the exclusion zone. The picture and film taken from the cameras showed the abundant animals and levels of radiation. The cameras captured the first sighting of brown bears and European bison inside the Ukrainian zone, as well as the increase in the number of wolves and the horses. The amphibians of Chernobyl are shown to be thriving, even in more contaminated areas. Signs have been found that they may show adaptive responses and evolution to life with radiation. An example being, the frogs within the exclusion zone are darker than frogs living outside of it, which could possibly be a defense mechanism used against radiation, or caused by radiation. So wildlife could be much more resistant to radiation than we previously thought, along with organisms could be starting to show adaptive responses that would allow them to live inside the exclusion zone. In addition, the absence of humans inside the exclusion zone is very helpful due to being able to return to habitat and live naturally without human disturbances like hunting, fishing, building, and more. In 33 years, Chernobyl has gone from being seen as a desert forever to being an area bursting with life and growing animal communities. Humans are strictly not allowed to be living in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Researchers have found the number of elk, deer, and wild boar within the Belarusian half of the Chernobyl exclusion zone today are around the same as those in 4 nearby uncontaminated nature reserves. Wolves, which are commonly hunted in the region because of their impact on livestock, were 7 times as abundant within the zone, according to a study. Chernobyl's cooling pond provides catfish populations an isolated habitat. It gives the catfish a habitat that is free from predators and packed with prey for supplying an all-you-can-eat food source. Catfish are both predators and scavengers. They are known to feed on fish, amphibians, worms, birds, and even small mammals. Catfish will eat almost anything, dead or alive, as long as they can fit it in their very large mouths. Many consider Chernobyl's catfish mutants, due to their size and the belief that the radiation has mutated them. But their size is due to the fact that they no longer have many natural predators, and they can live up to 50 years. Scientists have studied the vegetation in the exclusion zone. Scientists say that the vegetation might have the abilities to adapt to the stress of radioactivity developed millions of years ago. Their research involved planting crops like soy and flax seeds in a contaminated area of land not far from the accident site. A control crop was planted in the decontaminated soil close by. They then began comparing the proteins from seeds harvested from these two fields. They saw the same ones in both types of seeds. Researchers have found the dead trees, plants, and leaves in Chernobyl at the contaminated site don't decay at nearly the same rate as plants elsewhere. Researchers have also found that some of the dead trees on the ground are trees that were killed in the initial blast 33 years ago. Plants can replace dead cells or tissues much more easily and faster than animals, whether the damage is due to being attacked by an animal or radiation. Plant life has begun to grow over the developed areas of Chernobyl due to the lack of human population. Although humans no longer live in Chernobyl, life is still thriving. Populations of many plant and animal species are actually greater than they were before the disaster. In conclusion, the Chernobyl disaster was good for the Ukrainian environment. Chernobyl has allowed plant regrowth, large mammal populations to increase, wolf populations to increase. Fish are now able to grow to bigger sizes due to the lack of predators. Birds have created their own ecosystems, making the Chernobyl disaster beneficial to the Ukrainian environment.